Hello everyone. In today's lab I'm going to show you all how to combine the hands to the arms and the arms to the body. So I don't really need my references for this because I already have it all sort of modeled out. Sure, I could do some adjustments later, but one of the things you'll notice right away is that I have too much topology in my hand to line up properly with my arm. And that goes the same for my arm into the body. So one of the things I want to do first is I'm just going to go ahead and drag this upward. Okay. And I'm going to press Shift-I and take a look at my model here. Now, I can always duplicate this onto the opposite side, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. But the first thing I want to do is I'm going to run an extrude with these faces selected, just 4, and I'm going to drag this inward. And then I'm going to delete. Okay? Now, you could do this both at the same time. Okay, and how you do that is just select object mode, hold Control, Shift, and right click, go to Symmetry, make sure it's on X-axis and Symmetry. And now you'll notice that when I select on one side, it selects on the other. I can run an extrude here, and you'll see if I do an extrude and I try to scale inwards or outwards, it doesn't work right. If I use my arrow keys, it doesn't work right. So this is a tricky thing. Holding Control, Shift, and Symmetry, turn Symmetry off, and then just go ahead and scale in and outwards. Okay. I know it's kind of weird, but that's just kind of how they built it here. And from this point, just go ahead and delete. That's kind of how the software works. So if that's too confusing, just go ahead and do it the first way I showed you. And if not, you can try it that way also. And another thing I need to do, I'll turn Symmetry on again, is I need to, I'm going to press 4. Bring these outward. And this 2 and these 2 outward. Okay. And down maybe a little bit, give or take. And these need to come down. And this one. And this one. Now what I did there, it's probably a little difficult in wireframe mode to be able to read exactly what I did. But I've started to sort of just space these out in a way which I can begin to easily include more topology if I need, and also I can begin to sort of match these up. Now one of the things I noticed right away is I also need to move these over. And all I'm doing is sort of just matching my reference on the shirt itself. And I can bring this down and out. And now, with my 3 meshes selected, both the arm here and the body, I'm going to run a combine. Mesh combine, or edit. Mesh combine, sorry. Or the little circle here with the polyplanes in it. Now one of the things I can do is I can begin to sort of just match this all up. One thing I'm going to do right away is I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete that set of faces. I don't think I'm going to need it. And I'm just going to simply click both of these, holding Shift, merge vertices, and merge to center. I'm going to double check that it did it on both sides, and it looks like it did. If not, you'll have to do these each individually. And I'm actually, at the end, if you only do one side, I'll show you how to mirror the other side. And the main thing is just making sure that all the topology that we've built now up to this point lines up properly. It's going to look a little bit distorted because we're messing around with the topology, but we're going to fix that here momentarily. Right away I can tell this needs to come in a little bit, and here also, just to sort of round that out a little bit. And then again here. And now I'm going to run a soften edge. Okay, so now both of my arms are connected. What about the hands? Alright, now this can get a little tricky. One of the things I'm going to recommend to do right away is edit, delete all by type, and history, because there's a good chance that you've got logged in a lot of information into here, and it might be sort of maybe possibly slowing down your system, and or could cause it to crash as we begin to make some adjustments. Now for this point here, I know that my hands and my shoes here both have more topology than the actual meshes I have constructed at this time. So I'm going to start here. It's best to always model in lowest topology first. And having your references at this point is pretty good to take a look at. I'm just going to sort of eyeball it, and then I'll go back and make my adjustments in a future lab here soon. Okay. So, one more thing I can actually do is I can take these here, this edge and this one, and I can run a bridge, and I'm going to give it one division, and you'll see it did it to both sides. And then I'm going to drag this up and over, and then simply merge vertices to center. And now I've got sort of this start to my mesh here. I do need to do a little bit of cleanup, but I'm not too concerned about that yet, because I want to combine the hand to the arm. Now, first thing I'm going to do is, as I mentioned, it is easier to do this in low topology. So just as a sense of workflow here, one of the things you can do now, you can do it later. I'm probably going to do it now and later, but I'm going to turn on my brush tool, mesh tools, sculpting tools, and I'm just going to run the sculpt tool. I always find this to be a really helpful tool to use when doing tight little cleanups like this. I'm going to turn my symmetry on object X, and now you'll see that the arrow, the little dot on the opposite side, is mirroring every move that I do. Now this only works obviously on vertices, and I'm going to hold Shift, which activates smooth, and I'm just going to sort of start to smooth that out. And then I can begin to pull a little bit. I'm just sculpting without Shift on now, and I'm just kind of clicking. And give it a little bit more definition there. You can also do that by pushing and pulling verts. That's always a classic way to do things like that. But this is, I just find it to be a little bit easier in sections where there's close vertices. I find it helps a lot. Really all it's doing, the smooth tool, is it's averaging vertices. So it's averaging the distance of the vertices and sort of creating this as equal as possible push and pull in a way to make it smooth itself out, so to speak. So another thing you can do is soften edge. Hold shift with your object selected, hold shift, right click, soften edge. Okay, and shading, wireframe unshaded off, and you'll see now that I've got my shirt and arms connected. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn wireframe unshaded on, and the first thing I'm going to actually do at this point is I'm going to run a smooth. Okay, so running a smooth, holding, this is something we did in modeling 1, holding shift and right click, and go scrub down to smooth, and now it smooths out your mesh by I believe it quadruples your topology, and it also gives me the extra topology I need in a section like this with the hand. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine both these hands so I can try to do these both at the same time. If it doesn't work, like I said at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to make it work. And I'm simply going to, holding V, select each one of these vertices and start to line them up on my mesh, because to be quite frank, I don't know exactly how many edges I need yet in this region. So I'm gonna do my best to sort of match this up, and then at the end, if I need to make any adjustments, I will. And it's looking like every other one. Now there's gonna be two ways that we can sort of fix the topology on this, and that is by either we're going to create some triangles in the hand, or we're going to add topology into the body. You could always run an extra smooth, and you might get away with having the needed topology for this point. I wouldn't strongly recommend it anyway. And when it zooms out like that, what I'm doing is I'm pressing F on my keyboard, and then I'm kind of, it zooms out because I have both vertices selected on both hands. And now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, and I'm going to start to add topology in my arm section. That will keep it nice, clean quads. Another way you could do it is just to start to cut these into triangles. So, two ways. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this is entirely up to you. So I want to keep this one in particular because I see it runs right down the index, or the center of my middle finger. This one, however, does not. And this one does not either, but I need to keep one of them for the time being. But anyway, what you would do is delete those, press holding Control and delete. You'll see that deletes some of those edges, and then you can sort of begin to, you can do this at this point, that's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and show the way to do it by adding topology. So you can do this all the way through, just make sure it's not messing up your topology too much, and then in regions like this you're just going to cut in a triangle like so. And you could do that here and then get rid of this edge loop, but it really depends on the construction of the hand itself. Okay, I'm just doing a couple undos here. Alright. Now that being said, I'm going to begin to cut in some extra topology. I really don't want to cut in too much, but it looks like I'm going to need to. In this section, it looks like I'm going to need 2 subdivisions, add divisions to faces, or I could use the multi-cut tool holding Control. And I just set that to 3 because then that'll create 3 faces of edges there. So then I know I can go back in here to my wrist and start to line this up. I'm not too concerned about having too much topology in these sections, because when we get into modeling the face, we're going to add the face is going to use quite a bit of topology. So I know at some point I'm going to need the extra subdivisions in order to match up the topology so it's all one solid singular mesh. Okay. Okay. And what you're seeing here is I'm just adding in the topology needed in order to line this up properly. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Looks like one here, 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 here. Oop. And all I'm doing is clicking one and then shift double clicking the next. Now it depends on how this topology works. I'm going to find out right about now if I can just run and add divisions without it messing anything really up. No, it looks okay. Alright. So now that I've got the subdivisions I need, and I'm probably doing this a lot faster than you. I've done this a lot of times, things like this. But again, if you have any questions, always feel free to shoot me a message. Okay, so always double check to make sure that that all worked properly. And on the opposite side of the body, it did not. So we're not going to worry about that yet. Okay? Don't worry about that just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these, and then I'm going to go to my vertex mode. I'm going to highlight these vertices, hold shift, merge vertices. Make sure your distance threshold is enough where it doesn't combine too many of the verts, and then just go ahead and make sure that those verts merged properly. And in this case they did. Okay. Now, I could run a quick little sculpting tool, sculpt tool, bring my brush size smaller, and start to, I'm holding control to create a little bit of a crease on these points, and then I'm just going to run a quick little smooth. And I could run that kind of just gently right up here to make sure that some of those verts aren't too close to one another. But that's a pretty good start. Okay, and then this spot seems a little bit too much. Alright. And I'll run a quick little smooth. And one more time. Holding control, just create that little indent there. And soften edge. Alright, so everything I just did to this side, it didn't do the exact same on the opposite side. And that reason is because when I did an add, where is it? When I did an add subdivision, holding shift, add divisions to faces, the U on this side is different than the U on this side. So this side is U, the other side is V, where we see these edge loops here that are going actually the wrong direction. So I'm kind of glad that happened, so I could show you a quick and easy way to fix this. I'm going to switch to my front view, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the faces on the right side because I was modeling everything on the left. If you were doing the right instead of the left, vice versa. So now I just deleted that. Okay. I want to show you two cool things. First of all, one thing I'm going to first show you, and this can be applied at any point when modeling, but we can do an edit, and then we're going to do a duplicate special, Control-Shift-D, and hit the little settings box. Instead of a copy, make it an instance, and then group under parent, and then number of copies only 1, and scale X -1, and hit duplicate special. Now these are two separate objects. However, when you do something to one side, it will always do it to the other, no matter what. Now when you cut into topology and things like that, that may get a little tricky, like the previous thing I was showing you with U being V in the add divisions. If you use the multi-cut tool, it should work just fine. So I'm going to just give it a shot and see if that works. And then press enter, and it did. So using the multi-cut tool will work pretty good. And then again, everything you do to one side, it will do to the other. So again, just showing you, it just duplicates it like that. Now when you're finally happy and you have everything kind of set up as you like, you need to eventually, you don't have to do this till like the very end, but eventually you will need to do this, and you're going to do a combine, and you're going to combine the objects. Now if your vertices in the center aren't perfectly lined up, highlight them and run a scale inward. Let me turn off my brush tool, and that'll make sure that they are lined up there. Otherwise, there's this little button down here, and this opens up the script editor. And I have a cool little script that I use. I use it very often actually when modeling certain objects. And the script is move-x 0 and Control Enter. And that'll move everything to 0. To give you an example, you'll notice I just typed in that little code, and it moved my point here over to the X point as it was over here previously. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that actually. Okay, and then if I do, you'll notice down here it should say move X. I'm going to do Control Y. It says redo move. It's saying it's going to keep the what this actually means is move relative, and it keeps my X and Y values for that particular vertice, and then it moves it 0x to 0. Okay, so that's what that kind of means. Anyway. We don't cover scripting too much, but that's just a really useful script, especially when trying to mirror an object. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these, hold shift and right click, merge vertices, and merge vertices. And now my object is one solid mesh, all with quad topology, and it's starting to look pretty good. I'm going to save up to this point. Combining hand arm, body, and save. So now I've got the upper part of my body all connected as one mesh. And just to show you, and you'll notice this little crease down the middle. That's because I need to run a soften edge, and that crease will be gone. And now I've got the start of the upper body coming together pretty well. Alright. In the next video, we'll cover combining the feet to the legs and the legs to the body. And if you have any questions, be sure to message me. But that's where we are so far. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.